Modern front fence and landscaping ideas for 2025. Minimalist small yard design inspiration. As we move deeper into the architectural language of 2025, a principle continues to resonate through space, surface, and silence. Minimalism, not a style but a discipline, not a trend, but a commitment to clarity, intention, and presence. Single-story homes now carry this philosophy at their core. Clean facades, flat planes, neutral palettes that drift between stone grey, soft sand, and bone white. These homes do not speak loudly, they whisper with purpose. But the story does not begin at the door, it begins before that, at the edge of the property, where architecture meets the street, where movement slows, where the front yard becomes the first act of design. This space, this gentle buffer, is where the home introduces itself, not with excess, but with elegance, with materials that hold both form and function. The front fence is the first gesture, the first line drawn in the landscape, and in 2025, that line is clean, horizontal, deliberate. Slat fencing, especially in aluminum or high-performance composite, is the dominant expression. Not only for privacy, but for proportion. The slats stretch parallel to the ground, they lengthen the view, they mirror the low, linear geometry of the home behind them. Matte black, deep charcoal, muted clay. These finishes don't distract, they ground, they anchor. In places where openness is prized, frameless glass fencing emerges. Clear, weightless, borderless. Fixed between slender timber or powder-coated steel posts, it contains the garden without interrupting the view. It reflects the sky. It vanishes into light. It lets the home remain the hero. But not all homeowners lean toward the industrial. Many are turning once again to timber, natural, tactile, textured. Especially when reclaimed or responsibly sourced, timber fencing offers warmth, humanity, its grains, its knots, its gradual weathering add time to the composition. They remind us that materials change, and that change is beautiful. Now the ground, the space between the fence and the facade. This too is architecture, but not with walls, not with ceilings, with land, with space and shadow and silence. Landscaping in 2025 is not decorative, it is structural. It defines, it guides, it frames. Raised beds in smooth concrete or rusted corten steel become walls in the landscape. They set boundaries, they lift the eye. They carve space from the earth, neutral gravel paths carry the foot quietly. Each stepping stone is chosen, spaced, and placed with care. Movement becomes mindful, each step intentional. And planting, it is not abundant, it is composed. Less about variety, more about form and contrast. A single line of boxwood, a trio of succulents, the arch of an ornamental grass, the upright spine of a yucca. Everything has room to breathe, to be seen, to be considered. These plants are not background, they are sculpture. And as climate becomes central to design, the palette shifts toward resilience. Drought-tolerant, native, self-sustaining. These species don't demand water or attention. They belong, they endure, they respond to the local ecology. Near entry points, green begins to rise. Vertical gardens climbing foliage, modular living walls, they soften the hard lines, they shade, they cool, they breathe, and the furniture of the landscape, planters, steps, mailboxes, follows suit. Floating concrete steps, subtle shadows cast beneath them. Modular planter boxes mirroring the fence tone. Mailbox columns, integrated, not added on. Not a single object is separate. Everything is part of a single language, a visual rhythm. Then, as dusk settles, the garden lights up, but not brightly. Softly, strategically, calmly. LED strips tuck beneath edges, solar stakes accentuate gravel paths. Recessed uplights graze fence panels and sculpted plants. This is not light to be seen. This is light that reveals, that listens. And at the heart of it all, the commitment to sustainability. Permeable pavers, rainwater capture, recycled materials, efficient irrigation, not accessories, but foundations. Design now is not just visual. It is ethical, it is environmental, it is enduring. And so what begins at the fence extends through gravel, over stone, between plants, loft, and into the walls of the home. A front yard, once transitional, becomes transformational, a space of pause, of presence, of purpose. Minimal, but never empty. Quiet, but never silent. A place that speaks in material, in line, in light, and most of all, in intention. End of part 1,000 words. The garden continues, it deepens, it invites, not with volume, but with structure, with form, with stillness. Where the architecture holds space through planes and surfaces, the landscape carves its own presence through rhythm and scale. We begin again at ground level. In 2025, outdoor surfaces are not simply walked upon, they are designed, considered, layered. Gravel in soft taupe or limestone white lays the foundation. It absorbs heat, drains water, mutes footsteps. It is texture, audible and tactile. Over this, stepping stones float, not aligned in perfect rows but staggered, deliberate in their imperfection. Cast concrete, raw limestone, charcoal pavers, each one becomes a moment, a choice, a pause between movements. These paths lead, not just to the door but through space, across form, toward balance. To the side, raised planters emerge again, not decorative but architectural. Rectilinear beds in rusted steel, edges sharp, lines crisp, holding within them life restrained. The plants here are not many, but they are meaningful. A single olive tree, its silver leaves flickering in soft wind, a low hedge of Japanese box, ordered, clean, clipped, between them, space. Always space. Because in minimalist design, what isn't planted is just as important as what is. And above, a canopy begins to take shape. Not a roof, not an enclosure, a pergola crafted from slim steel or treated timber. A frame, a filter, a suggestion of sky made softer. Climbing plants wind upward, not wild but guided. Jasmine, passiflora, native vines. The foliage catches the light, creates dappled shadow, softens the lines below. This vertical integration allows the small yard to feel taller, deeper, more immersive. It becomes not just seen, but inhabited. Seating, too, becomes intentional, not bulky patio sets, not synthetic rattan and glass. Instead, a single bench set into a corner, poured concrete or a timber slab, floating between stone bases, minimal, grounded. Still, it doesn't invite a crowd, it invites presence, a place to sit, to look, to feel. Around it, planters echo the home's geometry, modular cubes in smooth finish, black, earth, slate grey, filled not with clutter but with focus. An agave, a dwarf pine, a sedge with movement like water, and as sunlight shifts, shadows stretch across gravel, cutting patterns between slats, beneath foliage, along stepping stones. This is the silent choreography of design, lines and shadows, mass and void, stillness and breath. Then, the finer details, the architecture within the architecture. Custom mailbox columns aligned with the fence in tone and finish. No longer metallic boxes screwed onto posts, but structures. Minimal monoliths with slots, with hidden lights, with character. House numbers too, set into concrete, cut from steel, backlit softly at night. These aren't additions. They are integrated expressions, every detail part of the whole. Lighting remains restrained, never intrusive, always intentional. Bollard lights placed low, just enough to define edge and path. LED channels hidden beneath bench edges, glows that hover but do not shine. Under the canopy, a single pendant, minimal, matte, casting a pool of light like still water. The garden at night does not awaken, it exhales, it becomes a different space. Slower, softer, deeper. And here, beneath all design, is a pulse of sustainability. Materials speak to it, fences of recycled composite, concrete mixed with reclaimed aggregate, decking sourced from FSC certified timber. Systems support it, water-efficient irrigation beneath the gravel beds, smart timers responding to weather, solar panels powering the light. Rainwater tanks sit tucked behind slatted screens, no longer hidden but celebrated in form. Designed, echoing the fence, cylindrical, clean. In this landscape, sustainability is not announced, it is assumed, it is the unspoken baseline, the way we build, the way we live. This is the architecture of restraint, not emptiness, but intentionality, not absence, but focus. In the small yard, we are not limited. We are empowered to distill, to define, to create space that holds only what matters and holds it beautifully. Because in this calm geometry of fence and stone, of step and shadow, we remember something. That design is not always what you add. It's what you choose to let remain, what you leave open, what you leave untouched. And that, in stillness, we find meaning. From the street to the doorstep, the path has already spoken. But now, as we reach the threshold of the home, the transition becomes personal, more intimate, more deliberate. Here, design shifts its voice from form to feeling, no longer about boundaries or sequence, now about welcome, emotion, belonging. The final portion of the front yard nearest the entrance carries the weight of arrival. And in minimalist design, arrival is not made grand with ornament, but with quiet orchestration. The flooring underfoot may shift from gravel to smooth concrete or from pavers to fine-grained timber decking. This subtle change in material signals the shift from public rhythm to private stillness. It prepares the body to pause, the mind to settle to one side. A vertical screen, perhaps bamboo, perhaps hardwood slats, rises to offer enclosure, a visual embrace, a buffer, a moment of privacy before the door. Behind it, a green wall hums with life. Compact succulents, trailing ivy, clusters of moss. Its texture is soft, its scent faint but grounding, its presence constant. Sometimes a single water feature rests in a corner, not a fountain, not a cascade, but a bowl. Stone, still, maybe with a gentle overflow, a sound like breath, like time slowing. This is not performance, it is presence. Above, an overhang, carefully measured, extends just enough to protect, its underside clad in timber or left raw in concrete or stone. The door ahead is flush, solid, frameless, painted to match the wall, or left natural to speak in grain and depth. A single handle, slim, vertical, matte, nothing more, nothing less. To the other side, perhaps a window, tall, fixed, framed in black. It reflects the sky, it offers no view in, only light out. Every element here is composed, edited, owned, and yet nothing feels sterile, nothing feels cold. Because while minimalism removes the excess, it leaves behind the essential. And the essential in good design is always human. A small bench sits just beyond the door, a gesture, an invitation for shoes, for pause, for waiting, or simply for being. Its surface is warm to the touch, its placement shade by morning sun. Beneath it, pebbles, smooth, silent. Around it, planting that leans low, a whisper of green, a touch of silver, perhaps lavender, perhaps sage. Scents that stir only when brushed, colours that fade into dusk. Lighting here becomes near invisible. A recessed strip beneath the bench, a glow along the base of the wall. Soft halos that do not blind, they do not expose, they reveal, they let the architecture breathe at night, they let the experience continue after dark. Even in the smallest front yards, there is room for ritual, a place to breathe before entering, a place to pause before leaving, a space that says, you are home. And this home, though minimal, is complete. It is not full of objects, it is full of intention. In 2025, this is how more homeowners are choosing to live, not in abundance, but in alignment, not in decoration, but in clarity. The front fence, the landscaping, the lighting, the forms, they are not accessories. They are the first architecture of experience. They frame the home before you touch the handle. They tell a story of thoughtfulness, of restraint, of care for materials, for climate, for time. This is what modern living demands, not just aesthetics, but systems that function, designs that breathe, materials that endure, front yards that collect rain, plants that thrive without waste, spaces that belong to the land, not simply built upon it. And so every horizontal slat, every quiet stone, every soft light adds up to something much greater than surface. It becomes a philosophy, one rooted in calm, in structure, in presence. And in the smallness of the yard, we find the largeness of intent. Because what's outside the home is not separate from what's within. It is the beginning, the transition, the soft threshold between the world and you.